Hi, welcome to Lesson 11, Session 2. Today we will be developing our strategies to subtract decimals to the hundredth. We're going to try a few different strategies today, and we will be working in our Ready Math workbook on pages 209 through 214. So go ahead and open up your Ready Classroom Math workbook to page 209. So on this page, it says read and try to solve the problem below. Marty eats 2 5/100 ounces of cheese from a 4 6/10 ounce block of cheddar cheese. How many ounces of cheddar cheese are left? So first of all, what is this question about? Well, this question is about cheese and how much of it Marty eats. So what is it that we want to solve? We want to find out how many ounces of cheddar cheese are left. And then the important information is that Marty eats 2 5/100 ounces of cheese, and he takes it off of a 4 6/10 block of cheese. So he takes some of this cheese and he just gnaws it off. Okay, so we need to find out how many ounces of cheddar cheese are left. So what I'd like you to do is use strategies or use a strategy that you think may work for you to go ahead and subtract how much Marty ate of the cheese to find out how much cheese is left. Go ahead and pause the video here. And then when you're done, you can unpause the video and come back and see if your strategy matches the strategy that I came up with. All right, let's see. So for me, as you know, my kind of go-to strategy over the last little bit has been using a place value chart. So I am going to stick with my tried and true strategy of using a place value chart. I feel like place value charts are the best way to keep everything in line and to make sure that I am getting all of the numbers that I need to work with. So I know that I have numbers in the ones. I have my decimal place column. You always need that decimal place column. I have my tenths and my hundredths. So now I'm ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw a line down the middle because I have two values. So since I'm trying to figure out how much Marty has left, I need to start with the larger valued number, how much cheese he started with in the first place, which is 4 6/10 of an ounce. So I have 4 6/10 of an ounce. Then from that, I'm going to subtract how much Marty ate. And he ate 2 5/100 of an ounce. So now that is what I need to subtract. So I'm going to make my little subtraction sign over here. Now, here is where I need to do a little bit of work. Remember that there's a number that we can place at, or a digit we can place at the end to fill this empty box here that will not change the size of this fraction here. It'll just change it'll make it equivalent. So remember, we can add that placeholder 0. The reason that placeholder 0 is really important is because if we have nothing here, we can't take five from nothing. So we need to put that 0 there just to like make sure we don't accidentally try and subtract this 5 from the 6, which you may have already tried to do on accident. So right now, if I'm going to go ahead and solve this using, just the standard way of subtracting, I recognize right away that I cannot take 5 away from nothing. So what I need to do is I need to borrow or regroup. So I need to take one of these tenths and put it over here as a hundredth. So if I cross out these tenths and make this a 5/10, I'm going to take and make this number over here 10 hundredths. So 1/10 is 10 hundredths. So normally I'm breaking all the rules. Normally I never let you put two numbers into one box. But in this case, since we're subtracting and we've regrouped and we've borrowed 1/10 and changed it into 10 hundredths, I'm gonna let it go. So if we change this to 10 hundredths minus 5 hundredths is 5 hundredths. Then now we only have 5/10 left here because we took one of those tenths and made it into hundredths. So 5/10 minus 0/10 is 5/10. And then we bring our decimal straight down. And then 4 ones minus 2 ones is 2 ones. So he has 2 55 hundredths ounces of cheese left. Is that the same answer you got? If not, do you see where you made your mistake? Did you forget to regroup? And usually that's what happens is you forget to regroup. All right, go ahead and turn the page to page 210. Looking at page 210, we learned that you can subtract that there's many different strategies you can use to subtract decimals. So one way that we can subtract decimals is to use base 10 models. So we're going to start out with 4 wholes and 6/10 because we start with 4 wholes and 6/10. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 wholes, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6/10. Then we cross out 2 wholes and 5 hundredths because Marty eats 2 wholes and 5 hundredths. So if we cross out 2 wholes and then we cross out 5 hundredths, then that gives us our remainder of 2 wholes. So we'll do 2 wholes and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/10 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hundredths. You see that there? 2 wholes, 5/10, 5 hundredths, 2 55 hundredths. Then we come down below. You can subtract decimals using a place value chart, which is what we did on the last page. Using a place value chart helps you make sure the place values are lined up correctly. And remember, we could put this 0 here because 6/10 is equivalent to 60 hundredths. So you can write a 0 in the hundredths column because this 60 means 60 hundredths. And this 6 in the tenths also means 6/10. Now, I'm not going to solve this here because we're actually going to talk about that on the next page. So number 1 says, look at the base 10 model and picture it. Explain why the models are crossed out. So why did we cross out the 2 wholes and the 5 hundredths? That's right. We crossed out 2 wholes and 5 hundredths. They're crossed out because we are subtracting 2 and 5 hundredths, or 2 wholes and 5 hundredths. So that's why we crossed those out. According to the picture it, so looking at this picture, how many ounces of cheese are left? Remember, we counted how many wholes we had. That was 2 wholes, and we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/10, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hundredths. So we had 2 55 hundredths ounces left. Now, if we look at the place value chart and model it over here, you can subtract the decimals without a place value chart by stacking them vertically. So I took these same number, or the book took these same numbers here and wrote them over here with outside of the place value chart, but we kept them stacked vertically so that they are still in their place values. Explain why you could not subtract this 5 from this 6 when finding the difference. So remember that we need to line up our place values. This 6 here, it means 6/10 because it's right to the right of the decimal point. This 5, if we have to go over two place values, so tenths, hundredths, this 5 is 5/100ths. You cannot subtract the 5 from the 6 because they're not the same place value. You have to look at them with the same place value. So their place values are not the same. The 6 in 4 6/10 tells us the number of tenths. The 5 in 2 5/100 tells us the number of hundredths. So they don't have the same, if we were looking at fractions, they don't have the same denominator. They're not equivalent. You can't subtract them because they aren't in the same place value. So now they want us to look at this problem here. It says, another way to express 6/10 is a number of tenths and 10/100. So remember, when we needed to borrow one of those tenths, when we took 1/10 away and made it into 10/100, how many tenths did we have left? That's right, we had 5/10 left. So another way to express 6/10 is to call it 5/10 and 10/100 because we know that 10/100 is the same as one more tenth, which would make it 6/10. And that is just a really fancy way for us to show how we are regrouping or borrowing to do our subtraction. So you can rewrite the problem as shown at right. Complete the subtraction. So now 10 minus 5 is 5. 5 minus 0 is 5. Bring our decimal straight down, and then 4 minus 2 is 2. There are 2 55 ounces of cheese left. I imagine that this is the strategy that most of you will probably land on. This is called the place value strategy. I imagine that that's the way that most of you will decide to do your subtracting decimals, but some of you may like a different method. So here is how we subtract two decimals. We line up the decimals by place value, and then we subtract each place. So we have our hundredths, our tenths, our decimal points, and then our ones. And then we subtract each place value, and in this case, we do need to regroup if necessary. And we did need to regroup because we could not take 5/100 away from 0/100. So we had to take a tenth and regroup it and make it 10/100, and then say 10/100 minus 5/100 is 5/100. And then now we only had 5/10 remaining. 5/10 minus 0 is 5/10, which gives us 2 55 hundredths. So now I want you to reflect and look back on what we've learned today. And I want you to think about what strategy you like best. Today, we saw two different strategies. We saw the base 10 model strategy and the place value strategy. When you're looking at these two different strategies, which is the strategy you prefer when subtracting decimals? The strategy I like best to subtract decimals is, and then tell me the strategy you're either going to choose today. You're going to choose base 10 models or place value. Because, and then tell me why. Go ahead and pause the video, do that now. And as soon as you've paused, you can go ahead and move on to page 212 with me. Okay, we're on number 7. On the top of page 212. Let's get this focused. I am going on number 12 to use my place value chart. So this is the same strategy as using the stacking method, which I will use on the next two problems, but I wanted to use the place value chart for number 7 to show you how you could use your place value chart to do this problem. So it says, Anya has $3.07 in her change purse. She spends $1.15 on snacks at the vending machine. How much money does Anya have left? So the first thing we need to do is we need to look and say, what is it that we're talking about? And we're talking about Anya getting snacks at the vending machine. And we want to know how much money Anya has left. And the important information is how much money she spent. So we're going to go ahead and take our place value chart. And we're going to write on our place value chart how much money Anya had to begin with. So to begin with, she had $3.07. So we're going to put in our 3 ones, our decimal. We have 0 tenths and we have 7 hundredths. Then we're going to see how much she spent. She spent $1.15. And then we're going to subtract. Since we're using a place value chart, everything stays lined up perfectly, and so we can go ahead and subtract. We have 7 hundredths minus 5 hundredths is 2 hundredths. Now we have 0 tenths minus 1 tenth. Well, we can't do that. We need to regroup. So we're going to take one of these whole numbers away. And so we know that the 1, so we're going to take away 1, so we have 2 ones left over here. And we're going to take that 1 and change it into tenths. And 10 tenths is equal to 1 whole. So we're going to make this 10 tenths. Now, what is 10 tenths minus 1 whole? It is 9. We have our decimal place, and then 2 wholes minus 1 whole, or 1 is 1. So Anya has $1.92 left after she buys her snacks. So on our paper, we can go ahead and write that we used a place value chart. And that Anya had left $1.92. Now we're going to go ahead and go to number 2. This time, instead of using the place value chart, we are going to use the stacking method. So to use the stacking method, we are going to first figure out what the question is asking. It says this: Destiny is sending a box to a friend. The box weighs 23.5 pounds, or 23.5 pounds. Destiny removes a 4 47/100 pound book to decrease the shipping cost. What is the new weight of the box? Show your work. So this question is about Destiny, who's sending a box to her friend. What we're trying to find out is what is the new weight of the box after she removes one of those books. The important information is that the box right now weighs 23.5 pounds. And then she takes out a book that weighs 4 47/100 pounds. So that's all the information we need to solve this problem. So first we're going to start with, we're using the stacking method. We're going to start with our 23.5 pound of box. Then we're going to line up our place value. We have no tens, so this first 4 is going to line up underneath our ones place. Then our decimal is going to stay in the same spot because we make sure we're lining up our place values, therefore our decimal stays lined up. Next, we have 4 tenths, which is going to go under the 5 tenths here. And then we have 7 hundredths. We have no hundredths in the first decimal, but we know what we can do. So what we can do is we can go ahead and put in a 0 because 5 tenths is the same as 50 hundredths. So that 0 we can put that 0 in that empty space there. And then we're going to subtract. So when we subtract, the first thing we do is we go, what is 0 minus 7? Often you guys will just write a 7 here because you'll go, well, I can't take 7 from 0, so I'm going to take 0 from 7. It doesn't work that way. Don't do that. Okay, you have to regroup. That's what we have to do. So we need to take one of these tenths away and change this to 10 because we're going to take one of those tenths and make it into 10 hundredths. So now we have 10 hundredths minus 7 hundredths is 3 hundredths. 4 tenths minus 4 tenths is 0 tenths. Our decimal comes straight down. 3 ones minus 4 ones, we can't do because we need more ones. So we're going to take and regroup and take 1/10. 110, excuse me. We're going to take 110 and we're going to add 10 ones to the 3 that is here. So 10 plus 3 is 13. And now we can subtract. 13 minus 4 is 9. 1 minus nothing is 1. So the new box, the box now weighs 19 300 pounds. Finally, we're going to do number 9. For number 9, I'm going to get you started. I'm going to use the stacking method, and then I want you to solve it on your own. So we have our 241 3/10, and we're going to subtract from that 81 55 hundredths. Remember, we can add that placeholder 0 there. So now I want you to subtract it and figure out which value is your answer. Go ahead and pause the video and do that now. All right, let's see if you got the same answer that I did. I'm going to quickly move through it. I can't take 5 from 0, so I'm going to regroup and bring over 10 hundredths. 10 minus 5 is 5. I cannot take 5 from 2 tenths, so I'm going to regroup and take away 1 whole and add 10 tenths to the tenths so that I have 12 tenths. 12 minus 5 is 7. I cannot take 1 away from 0, so I'm going to regroup and take away 1/10 and make that 3 tens and change this to 10 ones. 10 ones minus 1 is 9. I cannot take 8 away from 3. Lots of regrouping in this problem. I cannot take 8 away from 3, so I'm going to regroup and take 1 100 and change this to 13 100s. I added 10 100s to 3 100s, or 10s, excuse me. So now I have 13 10s minus 8 10s is 5 10s, and then 1 100 minus nothing is 1 100. So my final answer is D, 159 75 hundredths. You're going to go ahead and work on problem pages number 213 and 214 on your own. And as always, if you have any questions, you can go ahead and email your teacher. I'll see you next time.